let's talk about one other big piece of news this week, and that came with the Colts announcing that they were no longer going to start Matt Ryan. They pulled the plug on this experience that clearly was not going well on any level. Sam Ehlinger starting this week. You can talk about Sam Ehlinger if you want, but I kind of want to know your take on the Colts in general. A lot of people have said, like, well, are the Colts tanking? But what if I have Jonathan Taylor? How should I be treating things? What if I have Michael Pittman? What if I was hoping for Alec Pierce to break out? How are you handling the Colts now from a big picture perspective?
I don't think you can be tanking when you're 3-1, especially after all the words we heard. This command very clearly came from Irsay himself after he saw the corpse of Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan come through those doors. He said, no more. Like, I'm taking over, and we decide if next year we're doing this again, or if we have a starting quarterback and a 6th-round player who played 4 years. For Sam Ehlinger, I wrote in the waiver wire column, I do think he's actually really interesting, especially, again, I keep saying the word landscape because if you look at every position, it's bad in fantasy football right now. It's unfortunate. And so, like, of course, like if Daniel Jones is genuinely a top 12 player because he's adding nearly 8 rushing points per game, that's all he needs. Then, of course, Sam Ehlinger, who the past 2 preseasons we've seen has averaged a scramble rate. He's run on 15.5% of his dropbacks in that span. And like, we want that rushing floor. That's enough. And so I do think he's an interesting player for 2 quarterback and super flex leagues. But for like Alec Pierce, for Paris Campbell in particular, I think that's where the flip may flip, because we saw Paris Campbell have back-to-back season highs in target shares after averaging a 7.5% target share through the first 5 games. But that was because they were trying to avoid the hits and interceptions, league high in interceptions, league high in fumbles that Matt Ryan was carrying along. And so now with a scrambling quarterback, I do wonder if that changes the plan now. Like if he is more prone to go deep and run the ball, and that's the way we play offense now, rather than hammering Deion Jackson and Jonathan Taylor with 10 and 8 targets. So I actually think I want Alec Pierce over Paris Campbell now, whereas the past 2 games for Matt Ryan, I did want Campbell instead. And then Michael Pittman, I'm curious to get your thoughts because it's the deep targets, and Matt Ryan, as we knew, only threw 9 targets, 20 yards downfield all year. So does this change in your mind for Ehlinger throwing deep?
Yeah, I'm not sure about the deep ball with Ehlinger. He still might be, because he's, one of his big things in college was just like he was really good at protecting the football, right? Like he didn't take a lot of chances. He was 80th percentile of all prospects in touchdown to interception ratio. He will not. That's the one good thing about him is he typically does not make mistakes. I don't believe he threw an interception in either preseason, the last 2 years either as well. So I don't know if he's going to take that many chances and give Pittman like those 50-50 balls that we know Pittman can win, because that really isn't his MO. But Pittman, I think, just has too much like of a target gap insulation over the field, right? Like he's still going to command so many more targets than just these other guys will in the offense because he's that much better than them. I'm curious to see how much his usage changes because, like, I've talked about it for a couple of weeks now on this show that they basically turned this guy into Jacoby Myers. Like he all he does is run his hitches and drags. Like that's all we're getting. And now Jacoby Myers is running the routes we wanted Michael Pittman to run in New England. But yeah, his longest target this year, still 17 yards downfield, no targets on 20 plus yards. But I still think the target insulation is going to at least keep him with a floor. But I don't think we're going to get anywhere close to the ceiling we thought we were going to be able to get and achieve with Pittman when he was going like, around like the wide receiver 1-ish turn range. Even this week, I still see he's ranked there by the industry. So there's definitely still his optimism there. But I think he's going to be more of like a better floor player that you want in more full PPR leagues. But I think he'll be more or less fine. Matchup's still good this week. I've had 3 straight guests. I've asked them all a question. Everyone wants to keep buying Jonathan Taylor. Eventually, when isn't he a buy anymore? Or are you still in?
I still think I'm in. It's the fact that we can still get him low, right? Like we are still believing that the 75% of backfield touches he handled before he got injured are sustainable. We still think he gets to that. And we know he was limited this past game. He only played 55% of snaps. They took Deion Jackson out completely, 5 snaps, 3 routes, which we figured since Nyheim Hines is just a better third down back. But overall, like Jonathan Taylor out-snapped Nyheim Hines on third down as well before he got injured. And so overall, like that's the elite top 3 running back usage we want, top 2 even maybe. So overall, yeah, I still want Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, you bring up the running back landscape, like he's just getting the ball too much, like to say like, no, I don't want like a guy that talented. And Ehlinger is a guy that his rushing mobility could open up this as well. I mean, that's kind of the big thing. I thought the big takeaway with the Colts making this move is that they're completely rudderless as an offense right now with Matt Ryan. They tried a couple things. They even tried to make this Matt Ryan thing work, right? Like we saw them really try to go no huddle, add passing volume to the mix, be really aggressive the past 2 weeks from like a top down perspective of throwing the ball football aggressively. Like it's just too hard. Like when you have an immobile quarterback and a bad offensive line and you're counting on having perfect drives where your quarterback doesn't make a mistake for 8 to 10 plays, it's just a really hard way to live. And when you combine that with like the way teams are playing defense now in the NFL, playing over the top coverage, like it just makes sense for them to try this at this point. And like I said, is the reason why they didn't go to Nick Foles and they're going to Sam Ehlinger is because it just adds a different dynamic to the offense. When you look at teams like the Falcons and the Giants, the success that they've had overachieving, even more recently, the Bears. I mean, the Bears have 3 wins. They all have these mobile quarterbacks. Are they perfect passers? No, but they're able to do something that these pure pocket passers can't do. And that we were seeing a lot of guys struggle, pure pocket passers across the NFL landscape this season because of the construct of how teams are playing defense. So yeah, I don't think it's a tank situation. We hope that it doesn't crater like some of the guys around the situation. Like we definitely don't want to run into like Giants and Falcons, like offensive situations, right? Because there's more talent here. And we've seen like good players like Drake London and Kyle Pitts, like just getting burned by the Falcons